This is video 3 in a series on hormonal imbalances, mineral imbalances, PCOS, chronic fatigue, stress, and how they impact our lives and how to heal from them through, it's multi-layered. The first video I talked about oxygen and the mitochondria and how energy is created in your body and how we need the nutrients retinol and copper and magnesium to bioavailable copper, ceruloplasmin, to create energy, to get oxygen where it needs to go so their thyroid can recognize the oxygen and get that metabolism sensor, the metabolism moving. And then in video 2, I talked about insulin resistance and how while your body does need glucose, that if you overfeed, overnourish, glutton, intemperance, immoderation, not just calorically, but yes, for sure calorically, but if you're eating the right amount of calories that your body needs for energy, but the majority of them, a high percentage of them are sugars, refined sugars, synthetic sugars, refined carbs, the American diet, meat, cheese, and carbs, and a side of sugar, and then a drink, a soda. That in moderation of what types of food you're eating will also cause the cells to say, we're full, we can't bring any more sugar in here, and they start resisting the insulin's message. Hormones are just messengers. Insulin is a hormone produced by the pancreas, and it will resist the message that the insulin says, hey, we got some more sugar in here, and they say, nope, we're full, we cannot have any more in here without breaking the cell down. So those are the 2 videos we've done so far. Today I'm going to talk about calming the nervous system, because what happens as these domino effects happen, you'll see chronic fatigue is usually one of the first signs because you don't have enough energy. Chronic fatigue causes chronic stress, which then causes adrenal fatigue, because then your body is pumping the adrenaline, the epinephrine, and cortisol to keep up with the demands of the chronic stress, because you're tired all of the time. Your mind can't handle the information that's bringing in. We have decision fatigue, we have lifestyle fatigue, and we have spiritual fatigue from just we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and darkness. So this all is a culmination that I do believe that it is by design. I believe that there is a conspiracy and that it's the devil in charge of it. Love of money is the root of all evil. So he uses who he will to create scenarios that I liken it to Pharaoh and the Israelites. And they said, oh, you wanted to worship your God? Well, here, make more bricks, but this time we're going to take your straw. So you need to go gather your straw and build your bricks. And we're going to cause you to be so tired and so busy that you can't fellowship with the Lord, you can't worship the Lord, you can't do what God would have you to do. So what that leads you to is a breakdown in your nervous system, and you will just see the end result of this, if you just keep knocking down one domino, boom, 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 is mast cell dysregulation, histamine disorders, Crohn's disease, Graves' disease. There's just, you get autoimmune on top of autoimmune on top of autoimmune, because you're having a cellular breakdown, cellular death, and calcification of your cells. You have chronic inflammation, and it's just taking out one cell after another, after another, after another. So you have pain, continual fatigue, continual toxicity and oxidative stress that will manifest itself in one way or another. Let me just take this moment to say, I'm a biblical counselor. I have a master's degree in biblical counseling. I went to special school just to understand the medical aspects of how our bodies relate to our spirit and vice versa. I do take a holistic approach, but not in like the new agey type of way. But the fact that the body, soul, and spirit do impact each other. And if you're fighting on one plane, trying to climb this, fight this battle, but you don't realize that you have something else going on at the same time, it seems futile and exhaustive. So I do try to approach this from both sides. So when it comes to calming your nervous system, I'm actually going to do 2 videos. One is calming your nervous system on the plane of minerals, vitamins, and skeletal care. And the other one, the next video, is calming your nervous system through the biblical practices of conflict, fear, and trauma management. They are both important. Don't take one without the other, because if you're trying your best to do right till the stars fall, but then you are sick and you just keep getting more sick, it makes it so much harder, because when you are in pain and you have pressures on you, it is very, very difficult to not do whatever your flesh says, whether that's eating or yelling or hitting or fighting or being passive aggressive. I don't know what it is, going to your vice, whatever. It is far more difficult when you're tired and exhausted and in pain and discouraged and feeling hopeless. So they're both important. The very first thing when it comes to your nervous system, I assume that if you're watching this, you have a reason why you're watching it, and so you know what your nervous system is, but it is what controls your body, and it works hand in hand with your endocrine system. If you're going to study it, you will recognize that your hypothalamus and your pituitary gland, they are the master regulators of your hormones and your nervous system. Hormones are communicators. They tell your body to do things. And this goes back to my first video on creating energy and your cells and the need for oxygen. So the very first thing when calming your nervous system, so that you are not fried, so that all engines aren't going, so that you're not in that fight or flight mode all day long. Even when you're trying to sleep, it's just like you're exhausted, but you're on and you can't relax. And it's just like, how many years has this been going on? I'm just an adrenal fatigue. And your adrenals are the first line defense to stress. Your adrenals produce about 40 hormones. And then once your adrenals are collapsed because they don't have enough of the vitamin minerals that they need to keep going, to combat all of this stress, to keep producing the hormones that you need to deal with the stress, and then also the minerals to calm them. Because there's both sides of it. If you don't have what you need, they will collapse. They're called exhausted. It's not just adrenal fatigue. It's when fatigue has caused collapse. And then what happens is then your body starts saying, well, thyroid, we don't have the adrenals to help us anymore, so we need more energy. Can you get the metabolism going? Because we need more energy. We have collapsed. And the thyroid produces an oxygen sensor. That's what its hormone does. And that goes back to the first video of how your body needs proper oxygen transportation to your cells, to your mitochondria, to produce energy. So we'll watch from the first video. This all builds on top of each other. And that first video is the foundational level of everything that follows. It is the first domino. You can't fix this domino if the first domino is fallen. You must start at the first domino. So the very first thing is to regulate your oxygen supply to the mitochondria in video 1. For that, you need the retinol and copper, bioavailable copper, which is the ceruloplasmin that the retinol builds, and the copper and the magnesium. Magnesium is very important. Magnesium is especially important when it comes to your nervous system and your adrenals. So you have the bioavailable copper, the retinol, the vitamin C and E that break down the hydrogen peroxide smog. So this is where you'll hear the word oxidative stress. And the oxidative stress that comes from energy production in your body, if you don't have enough copper and retinol to turn that hydrogen peroxide that your body's producing, if you don't have enough to turn it into water, which God uses to recycle through your system, your body is teeming with excess hydrogen peroxide. And that will cause toxicity in your body, because your cells aren't just one place. They're throughout your whole body. Your brain cells, your brain has 2 million mitochondria per cell. Your nervous system has a huge amount of mitochondria per neuron. So you have these mitochondria and cells throughout your whole body, including your intestines. And when you have an overproduction of hydrogen peroxide, which is an antibacterial agent, when you get a cut and you pour some hydrogen peroxide on there and it fizzes up and it kills the bacteria in there. It does the same thing with your gut. And your gut is where your immune system really is being built. Your endocrine system sends hormones that are messengers, but your gut and your brain and that vagus nerve right there on the top of your spine, they communicate and they really tell your body, what's an enemy and what's not an enemy. What's a good bacteria, what's not a good bacteria. How do we keep a balance so that we can absorb the nutrients that we need to absorb and expel the food that we have already absorbed things from. And then also all those cells in your intestines, if they get damaged through the process of the hydrogen peroxide, they're spewing too much and then insulin's resistance and they're just damaged. You have messed up mitochondria, messed up cells that are dying after inflammation. The process of cell death is the first one is that oxidative stress, too much hydrogen peroxide, which then causes inflammation, which is your body's natural good way of saying, hey, we need some attention. We don't have enough of what we need to recycle our energy flow the way that it's supposed to. It turns into inflammation. When the inflammation is not dealt with, but instead it just keeps having more hydrogen peroxide pumped through it instead of recycled the way it's supposed to, then you have cell death. You get a leaky gut. You have cells dying throughout your system. It's just as bad as it sounds. And then your body's way of saying, well, we can't deal with that anymore. There's no way to repair that at night when we sleep. Rather than rest and recover, which you're not resting and recovering because your adrenals are fatigued and you're under chronic stress because you have the oxidative stress, you have the life stress, your nervous system is freaking out. It does not rest and recover. It's continually on. And that causes mast cell dysregulation because there's no time for your body to rest. Your body no longer knows what is a good guy and what is a bad guy. Your cells are deteriorating. You're getting a leaky gut and you're having calcification of the dead cells, which causes calcification nodules all over your body. And people with autoimmune, the autoimmunes build on each other because the root issue of what's causing the cell death isn't being dealt with properly. So you can imagine that after 2 or 3 years of chronic oxidative stress in your body, you're going to have some signs. And usually they'll put you on medication that may or may not deal with the root issue of not having enough oxygen, not having enough retinol and ceruloplasmin to deliver the oxygen, not having enough ceruloplasmin and retinol to break down the hydrogen peroxide into the water molecules, not having enough vitamin C and E, which are found together in foods, not having enough magnesium to create the process of its integral in the creation of when the oxygen and the sugars meet to create the energy. But also let me bring back magnesium to your adrenals. So I'm giving you the big picture, which might be too much, but I want you to understand the why, because all of those things work together. But when your body is under oxidative stress, what happens is that your nervous system sends a signal to your endocrine system saying, whoo, we are under attack. We have a lot of things to deal with. And this is the food side of it, that you have to get the oxidative stress under control. You have to get that hydrogen peroxide under control. Or what happens is that your adrenals kick in and pump out the epinephrine, which is adrenaline, and cortisol, testosterone, growth hormones. There's so many things, but the ones we hear about most often are epinephrine, adrenaline, and cortisol. And this is why we hear about those, because they stay lingering in our system and they're not supposed to. When you research, how do I lower my cortisol levels? How do I lower my epinephrine? What you will very often hear is to set a circadian schedule, a circadian rhythm, so that your body knows, hey, it's morning, we need cortisol, we need energy, we need to get up and go. So you get up with the light and you get take a brisk walk. That's great. And then at the end of the night, you just start a nighttime routine where your body says, well, I finished my day job. And that is good. I'm not saying don't do that. That is part of life's rhythm of, we know that we're about to approach bedtime. And so, I always try to get all of my job done by dinner, and then there's the dishes that are done, and then I just say, whew, I made it. I'm done, except for church nights. And then I just start to unwind. But my problem, and a lot of people's problem, is that when you're supposed to unwind, you're still so tired, but your body will not shut down. Your mind just keeps going. It is on. And that is what causes those high cortisol levels, because something is happening within your hormones where they are not able to leave your system. The epinephrine will stay in your body. The adrenaline will stay in your body until they're escorted to your liver. Let me read this, because epinephrine tells the liver, when you go into fight and flight mode, epinephrine tells the liver to release the sugar. So it says, go, all those stored triglycerides, release that sugar so that they can go to the mitochondria to produce energy to face the problem. That's the good thing. But epinephrine stays in the system until they are then again removed by the liver. But that process requires magnesium. So if you do not have enough magnesium carbonate is a great supplement. If you're going to get any supplement out of this, get a good magnesium supplement. I think Nutrigold has magnesium gold, and that's a good supplement. It's not part of a daily multivitamin. I'm not recommending that. But your body needs about 5 milligrams of magnesium per pound of your body weight. And if you've never taken magnesium, don't take that much right away, or else you're going to have diarrhea. I just said diarrhea on YouTube. But it will stay in your body until it's removed by the liver, and that process requires magnesium. So understand that adrenaline will stay in your system if you do not have the magnesium that it takes to transport it back to the liver. Okay, now the other big hormone that we hear is cortisol. Cortisol is the active part of that hormone, that messenger that says, body, potassium, we need to get this body pumping, we need to get blood to transport oxygen, we need to have a higher blood pressure, go, go, go. So cortisol is the active hormone. It's the fight and flight. But cortisone actually has an inactive, the rest and recover mode called cortisone. Very often when we hear about cortisone, it's like a shot, an injection for pain, spots, inflammation. But cortisone is the rest and recover. It is the repair mode. But what we don't recognize is that just as epinephrine and adrenaline need magnesium to be transported out of the body into the liver, cortisol needs magnesium to do the NADP conversion process that returns cortisol from its active state into cortisone, the rest and repair state. That process requires magnesium. If you do not have enough magnesium in your body, then you not only do not have the magnesium it takes for your mitochondria to produce the energy, you do not have what it takes for your heart to pump every beat. You do not have what it takes for the epinephrine to be transported back to your liver. You do not have what it takes for cortisol to go to its rest and recover state of cortisone. So what you have is low energy, and so you're exhausted, but you are fried. You are on. Your nervous system is go, fight and flight. It has never been brought down. So you have a host of people with adrenal fatigue because it's never able to recover. But it still can't recover if you haven't dealt with the hydrogen peroxide buildup in your body because you don't have the copper and retinol. So it can want to recover. You can have the magnesium for it to recover, but it can't if you don't deal with the hydrogen peroxide in your body. hydrogen peroxide is one form of oxidative stress, but other stressors in our environment are mold toxicity. Since Wi-Fi has been developed, and maybe it's due to how our insulation is in our homes, but mold has grown 600% faster. So there seems to be a lot of mold toxicities in our environment that affect people who already have a little bit of a weakened immune system, probably because of the hydrogen peroxide within your gut, or maybe it's because your vagus nerve is overstimulated because of who knows what causes. There's just so many environmental factors. So we also have Lyme's disease, that is an environmental stressor on our bodies. So you do need to deal with not just the hydrogen peroxide buildup in your body, but be aware that there might be other things. Because what if you're like, well, I'm eating enough retinol and I'm eating enough copper and I'm taking magnesium, but I'm still so sick. Look at the mold factor, maybe Lyme's disease, but also then you have the spiritual side of things. And that's what I'm going to talk about next, is that first I want to say that when your body is in acute stress, meaning a temporary stress, magnesium and B vitamins, they manage that. They respond to perform those functions of managing the adrenaline and the cortisol and what your body needs for your nervous system. Those vitamins are important in managing your stress load. And there's this thing called a magnesium burn rate, meaning the more stress that you're in, the more magnesium that you need. So you might need 5 milligrams per pound of body under normal circumstances where you have a normal rhythm and a routine and there's not outside stressors. But if you have chronic or extended stress in your life, you need more magnesium, but you also need to deal with those stresses. But just understand there's a burn rate. The more stress that there is, the more magnesium your body burns just to do the processes it needs for you to function. So that's 22 minutes on calming your nervous system. So the key takeaways about calming your nervous system are, number one, deal with the hydrogen peroxide oxidative stress that's dealt with in video number 1. 2, understand why your body needs magnesium and take the magnesium. But 3, try to get your life in a way where the environmental stressors, not just the oxidative stress, but the environmental stressors, mold, Lyme's disease, in the end, histamines, but I'm going to talk about histamines later. But activity related, your life is just too full. You're not resting. You are in the productivity mindset, the hustle mindset, which I'm very anti-against. I don't think the Bible talks about the Sabbath, that there was a day of rest, not like the thou shalt keep the Sabbath day and keep it holy, but there was a day of rest before that. And Jesus said in the New Testament that the Sabbath was made for the man, not man for the Sabbath. Man, women, humankind, we need rest. Our value is not based on our productivity level. Yes, don't be slothful. Yes, be a hard worker. Be diligent. But you need rest, or your body will force you to shut down. But as far as environmental stressors, if you have no mold, you have no Lyme's disease, you have created a rhythm of rest and a rhythm of when to sleep, you're getting enough sleep, you're not over dealing with your schedule, but then you still have these lingering issues of conflict, fear, and trauma management. That's what I'm going to talk about in the next video, because they all touch each other.